You don't need to stay awake for all of this, just settle into the soft weight of the evening, let your breath become even and unhurried. Like a caravan finding its pace after the city gates, we'll travel a quiet road together, somewhere along the arteries of an empire. In a century where distances are measured in footfalls and star river light, if you drift off, that's all right. The road goes on gently without you. Before the gates, a city breathing out, dawn presses a cool hand over an Ottoman provincial city. The muezzin's call dissolves into the pale blue sky, then silence returns. And the world is a courtyard washed in water. A brass ewer ringing lightly as it meets the stone lip of a basin. In the market, shutters tilt open like eyelids. The smell of cardamom and roasting chickpeas tucks itself into the alleys. Fig sellers straighten thin pyramids of fruit. A boy with a tray of simit, golden rings with sesame, moves past and leaves the air sesame sweet. Near the western gate, the caravan is assembling. There's a roll call of names and ledgers, bales marked with madder red, indigo blue, and the chalked initials of a merchant in Aleppo. Bundles of wool felt from Anatolian highlands, sacks whispering with pepper and cinnamon, coils of rope, a chest of tiny glass bottles from Damascus, 2 jars of musk wrapped like sleeping children, and a slim packet of letters sealed in wax, promises traveling under wax and twine. The caravan master, with sun-lined eyes, counts the camels with a prayer under his breath. He knows the rhythm of departures, the way talk rises and falls and is finally replaced by the heavier language of movement. He knows every sound the long road can make, from the soft hiss of a sand-laden wind to the shy clink of a brass bell on a leading camel's breast. Handlers test girths, check the padding under wooden saddles, and slide woven nose ropes through patient lips. A scribe sits cross-legged on a carpet scrap, inkstone in his palm, copying a list of owners and loads. The caravan master's seal, a little amulet of authority, presses a crisp crescent into clay. And the day becomes official, forming the line. The camels kneel when told, with a warm exhalation like a sigh into winter wool. Loads are lifted in a slow choreography, a heave, a pause, a tug, a knot. Each bale is wrapped in an extra layer of woven sacking to guard against sun and rumour. Sooner or later sand will try to find its way in. And sooner or later it will win. But not today. The line takes shape, a scout with a light step and eyes for the ground. The master with a staff and a string of brass counters looped to his belt. 4 strings of camels, each string led by a bell animal whose steady clapper keeps an almost musical order. And at the back, a drover with a fringed scarf over his nose, watching for anything that loosens or lags behind. At the very rear, a cart creaks once, a humble axle that will go only as far as the first caravanserai. The driver raises 2 fingers in greeting to a passing water seller. They both smile like men who know the secret. The first stretch is always the noisiest. After that, the world remembers how to be quiet. When the city gate opens, it does not swing. It exhales. The inside presses out. The outside presses in. And for a breath, the road is a seam being sown with hoofprint and footprint. A guard counts, but only to reassure himself. The road counts differently. The road begins to hum. Dust turns the morning light into a pale ribbon. Pigeons lift from a broken wall, flicker, and vanish into air that smells faintly of lime plaster and warm earth. The little farms outside the city are awake. Donkeys tug at rope halters. Women rinse copper in a canal. Children kick at the tough skins of melons to test their ripeness. A dog watches the caravan pass, ears up, then decides all caravans are alike, long, slow, and inevitable. There is no hurry. The first miles are for letting the load settle, for letting the body remember what travel means. It means the count of steps, the very soft swing, the small language of bells. It means the road's grammar, rise, fall, and the long flat in between. A pair of stalks cross overhead. The scout signals without stopping, a tilt of palm, water ahead. A cannet mouth shaded by a low wall and a fig tree. The caravan arcs toward it as gently as a river finding an old course, water exchanged for time. Water is a negotiation you keep making with the day. At the canot mouth, the stone is cool enough to rest a cheek against. The camels drink in quiet gulps. The sound like oil sliding down a channel. A ladle goes from hand to hand with calm. And the road watch is relieved by one of the younger men, who has a face still full of city sleep. The caravan master studies the sun. How much is already spent? How much is left to buy shade with? He runs a thumb along the worn edge of his staff where the varnish has deepened from years of touch. He thinks of distance as a series of wells. One well becomes another. And the long stretch between is a bridge you cross with patience. A chest is opened. Inside are wrapped cups. A small tin of coffee grounds. A bundle of cardamom pods. The handler with the clever hands coaxes a flame from lint and flint and whispers to a little copper pot. Coffee breathes out into the morning, bitter. Sweet. Then bitter again. No one speaks loudly. Drink is measured and shared. Even jokes are made softly, as if not to wake the heat before its time. A ledger of sky. Back on the road. The land opens like a ledger. Columns of pale grasses. Rows of stone outcrops. The caravan reads by touch. The camels place their feet on old paths. The kind that remember more footsteps than any scribe could. A low wall of tumbled stone marks a field no longer tended. A fig tree leans. Then rights itself in a slow wind that has carried stories all the way from the sea and can't remember which bits belong to which port. A woman in the caravan adjusts her veil to keep the light off her mouth. She hums an old song about braided bread and lamps set out for company. The song has more rooms than any house. And you can walk through them even with your eyes closed. Somewhere up front, someone else answers with the ghost of a drumbeat tapped against a saddlebow. The sound is nothing ambitious. It only keeps time until time keeps you. Heat with a patient voice. Midday heat speaks slowly and repeats itself. It says, keep the head covered, let the bell animal choose the pace, make the shadow longer by walking on the side of the track where the embankment rises just a hand's breadth. It says, watch the horizon. Not because something is coming, but because the horizon is a promise that the road doesn't end with you. Mirages bloom and fold. Pools become silver air. Then only air. No one is fooled. Not even the newest boy. He has been told all morning about water, how it's always a little farther and always worth the patience it demands. Still, the shimmer is not useless. It is a ribbon the mind can tie its thoughts to. Letters being carried under seals. A daughter waiting at a caravanserai with pomegranate juice in a blue cup. The soft click of prayer beads when the day turns toward dusk. A place to lie low, in a shallow dell. The caravan rests through the high sun. A tarp is slung, felt. Then reed mat, making a temporary roof. The air underneath is a little like the inside of a bread oven after the loaves have been drawn out, heat left in the bricks. But a gentler kind. The camels fold their legs neatly and breathe through broad noses. Their eyelids moving like shutters in a mild storm. A handler checks for stones lodged between a soft pad and the earth and finds none. Another handler loosens a knot. Reties it. Then loosens it again for luck. Lunch is simple and slow to describe. Flat bread torn in half. The crumb airy and still damp with life. A handful of olives rolled against the tongue until the salt has told its story. A date shared the way you share a road, each half tasting a little of the other. No one needs to speak. They do anyway. But softly. As if there were a guest sleeping nearby. The guest is the afternoon. And the afternoon is courteous, it slips in and sits down without scraping a chair, starting again. Like a tide, when the shade begins to tilt. The caravan rises by degrees. First the bell animal, who gets a scratch on the chest and blinks as if remembering a private joke. Then the others, who accept the logic of the day. The ropes are straightened. A water skin knots against a saddle with a practiced tug. A boy rubs a smear of oil into a cracked strap and feels, without thinking about it, how leather drinks. 2. The road has been cooling itself while you rested. You can feel it through a sandal. A little hush coming up from the ground, a long breath goes from front to back of the line. And the caravan moves. Slower now but more sure. The way a prayer moves after the first words have found their shape. The caravanserai, a house for the road, as evening gathers its shawl. The caravanserai appears as things sometimes do in the desert, suddenly. But also as if it has always been there. It is a low strong rectangle. Its walls as thick as patience. The bricks the color of bread crust. A single arch, unadorned but dignified, opens into a courtyard. Inside, there is a well with a lip polished by 1,000 ropes. There are rings set into stone where you can tie a lead rope without worrying what the night might forget. There are cells along the sides, small rooms with platforms for sleeping and for laying out a prayer rug so that Qibla is easy to find even when your thoughts wander. A custodian greets the caravan master with a respectful inclination. They've seen each other before. If not here then somewhere equally practical. The custodian writes a few notes on a wax tablet: arrival time, number of animals, merchant seals observed, the small fee that keeps the doors oiled and the well deep. There is no fuss. Doors designed for travelers like to behave as if they were expecting you. The camels kneel and are unsaddled. Each load lifted down gently. Not because the goods are delicate but because the day deserves a soft ending. Hair is brushed backward with a palm. Sand falls like a thought that wasn't needed after all. And the bell animal is thanked with a bowl of bran and a rub along the jaw. Evening rituals, water, washing, warmth. The courtyard grows a gentler echo as bowls and ladles speak to one another. Hands are washed. Faces are washed. A small basin receives a careful cup of water so a traveler can rinse dust from a brass cup. Water is everything on the road, friend. Rule. And relief. Someone spreads a rug near the well where the air is cool. Dates are opened like little books. Inside each one is sweetness written in a font you can only read with your tongue. Almonds are cracked with a wrapped stone so the sound does not argue with the evening. In the little kitchen near the gate, the custodian's wife or sister, no one agrees which and no one needs to, stirs a pot that smells of lentils and cumin. Flatbread slaps against a hot stone and is peeled away puffed and smiling. A boy brings out bowls and looks pleased with the weight of them. As if he were carrying a noble secret. There is coffee again. But this time it is slow and thick. The grounds are persuaded to sink. The foam stands in a small, dignified way. Cardamom releases its green whisper. No one rushes the cups. They go around the circle like a moon that isn't in a hurry to be full. A murmur of stories. Stories are practical. They help you spend the evening in small coins. A handler tells about a night when a windstorm found them far from any wall. And how they made a wall out of their loads. And how the camels leaned against it with the intelligence of older brothers. A merchant speaks of a city where the streets are so narrow that at noon you can't find your own shadow. The scribe offers a miniature lesson, how to fold a letter into itself so it needs no wax and yet remains a secret. In the corner, near a brazier, an old traveler speaks a little about caravans that move at night. The way stars answer for the road when the road can't see itself. He is the kind of speaker who rests often and lets silence explain the parts he doesn't say. A student asks her teacher, in a voice you can barely hear, why the moon changes shape. The teacher says that the moon is just practicing the art of arrival. First a sliver, then a bowl, then a shield, and then the memory of itself. The student considers this and decides she can sleep on it for years. Quiet devotion. A line of prayer mats appears like reeds along a bank. The caravanserai accepts the sound of quiet recitation the way a garden accepts dew. Some travelers pray with words. Some with the steady polish of a thumb on a string of beads. Some with the simple act of folding a blanket for a stranger and placing it where the stone is warm. The custodian, having counted the animals once more, takes a moment to tilt his head toward the night and say the name of a son in a far city. There is room for all of this. The courtyard has known it all before: arrival, hunger, rest, promise, the small tasks that make sleep near. Loads are nudged under awnings, a rope is mended with a double stitch and then a third for comfort. A jug is set near the door of a cell so no one has to cross the courtyard for a drink in the dark. Sand is shaken from a sleeping mat into a corn where tomorrow's broom will find it without needing to be asked. The bell animal lifts its head once, listens to the stars, and decides they are repeating themselves. It lowers its head again and forgets the question it thought to ask. The caravanserai after lamps. When the lamps are lowered, every shape grows more honest. The arch over the gate is just an arch. The well is simply a circle holding the sky. Your breath is a path that leads from where you lie to everywhere you've been. In the cell, the walls hold the last of the day's warmth. A mild draught finds the back of your hand and, finding it clean and tired, kisses it once and goes about its business. Outside, sandals whisper against stone as someone returns from looking up at the stars to find out whether tomorrow is going to be a narrow day or a wide one. The stars said both answers at once. Which is their way? The road keeps watch. There is always a watch. And there is always someone gentle enough to take it. A man with a cloak stands near the gate, staff in hand, and counts time not in minutes but in the ways the night arranges itself. A cat that has decided the courtyard belongs to it, a thread of smoke that forgets it is smoke and tries to be a cloud, the soft shift of a camel that dreams of a hill that is kinder to the knees than this one. From time to time the watcher walks the perimeter. He does not expect trouble. He expects continuity. He hums quietly, a melody without ambition, something he heard in a bathhouse once, or in the echoing space beneath a city bridge. Continuity arrives right on time and brings with it the smell of cooling stone. What the night remembers. The night remembers other caravans, some louder, some all the way silent, some with a drummer who tapped the side of a water skin until a rhythm made the miles behave. It remembers a winter when the wind had teeth, and the custodian who laid extra straw under the animals and took payment later in praise. It remembers a child born at dawn in the far cell, whose first cry startled a pigeon from a beam and made the mother laugh even as she wept. If you are still awake, let that be enough. If you are asleep, the road is holding you the way a low wall holds the evening when it needs to sit down for a while. The promise of morning, somewhere beyond the arch. The horizon adjusts its shawl and considers becoming morning. The first person to stir is the man who likes to see the world before it remembers it is supposed to be busy. He sits up, folds his blanket, and listens to the breath of animals and people, making sure neither has turned into worry while he slept. He lights a small flame and warms yesterday's coffee with a patience that doesn't need to be impressive. The smell touches the edge of the room and asks if anyone else is awake. No one answers yet. But the smell is in no hurry. It will tell the same joke later and get a better laugh. A slow reveille. The caravanserai wakes the way bread rises, quietly, and all at once only to those who have been paying attention. Straps are checked with the tip of a finger. A boy runs a palm along a wool bale and feels the faint roughness of the weave. Someone coughs into a sleeve and feels better. Someone else blinks at the small moon that remains like a coin you forgot you had. The well sings a short song as the first pail climbs. The courtyard smells of wet rope and clean stone. The custodian writes on his tablet, the wax taking letters obediently because it has been warmed by the kitchen hearth. He notes the hour and thinks, as he often does, that the road is a kind of handwriting. Everyone has their script. And over time the land learns to read them all. Saddling the day. Camels rise by corners, a gentle push, an E, a lift, and the world tilts politely until it's upright again. The bell animal is kissed on the muzzle like a friend you don't need to impress. And the bell speaks once to wake its own echo. Loads find their backs the way words find a mouth, naturally. After a pause, a merchant touches the sealed packet of letters and imagines the faces that will unfold them. The scribe yawns and remembers a proverb about yawning being the body's way of letting unnecessary thoughts fly out before the day begins. Leaving without regret. Departure is a soft thing here. The caravanserai doesn't hold on, it simply stands and remains itself. The arch frames the morning like a page number you don't need to read aloud. The custodian raises a hand and receives one in return. No one keeps score. The well is deep, the doors swing easily, the road is exactly where you left it last night. People thank one another with their eyes, with their small bows, with the tidy way they leave a place better than they found it. Stray straw gathered, a smudge wiped from a step, a bowl rinsed and turned upside down to keep the dust from learning to swim, back onto the ledger. The caravan lengthens into the day. Cool air moves ahead of the sun like a herald with good manners. You feel your breath settle into the old count, in for 4, out for 4. A pace even the stones approve of. A kestrel tilts and balances on nothing. A fox prints a signature in the road's margin and then decides modesty is better and takes it back with her tail. Someone says a line from a poem, and someone else listens as if it were a secret left on a doorstep. The road keeps its word. The first well of the day appears a little sooner than anyone expected, which is the road's way of saying it remembers you. Water is drawn. Dust is rinsed from mouths and from the crease where a thumb meets the palm. A coin changes hands for a new length of rope. Another for a slice of melon the color of early sun. The caravan master checks his counters and knows what the day will cost and what it will pay. He smiles without showing it on his face. The way a man smiles at a plan that has turned out to be a simple one. The bell sounds once. A small round note in a world that has no corners right now. The line leans forward as one body. And your breath, friendly and unhurried, leans forward with it. The road is long, but it never forgets to be kind. If your eyes close, it will keep walking. And when you wake, it will be right there. Patient as a camel standing in the shade, waiting for your hand to find the rope again. A longer line, a softer world. The road is generous this morning. Shadows are longer than they need to be and kinder than you remembered. The bell animal keeps an even syllable. The other bells answer with their smaller vowels. You can hear it now, the music that was there all along. Leather speaking to wood, wood to rope, rope to breath, breath to distance. Etiquette returns like an old friend. A rider inclines his head when passing a shepherd. A shepherd lifts 2 fingers in reply without breaking stride. If the shepherd's dog glances your way, you glance back with a little smile that means, you're a good guardian, we are no trouble, let us borrow your horizon for a while. A pair of merchants exchange places in the line so they can speak in low voices about weights and measures that never raise their voices either. They conclude nothing, which is perfect, because conclusions are for cities. Meeting a caravan coming the other way, the scout signals, dust ahead. But shaped like an answer, soon a second caravan resolves from the light. Its line a mirror of your own. Its bell animal wearing, by coincidence, the same style of pelleted fringe. Greetings are exchanged in the middle distance so that no one needs to shout. This is road law. Older than any sultan, the masters speak first. Trading the news that matters to travelers more than to courts. A well 3 hours on tastes of iron. A stand of tamarisk throws a better shade if you sit on the north side. A custodian upriver has taken to boiling a pot of chickpeas that sells out before the first star. Maps are sketched with staffs upon the dust and then brushed away so the land won't feel diagrammed. 2 boys swap talismans. Each a small disc of bone scratched with a sign that means good weather to someone's grandmother. A woman in your line asks after a cousin in theirs. She hears the cousin married a cooper. And the barrel maker's trade has agreed with him like shade agrees with a noon wall. Everyone is pleased on everyone's behalf. The road likes it when you are pleased for others. The 2 lines ease past each other, respectful as dancers bowing to the same drum. For a few minutes the bells braid their sounds, and then the braids unweave, leaving you with a thinner silence that feels richer for having been shared. Wind rehearses a lesson. The wind has been practicing far away and wants to try its new piece here. It gathers, not to frighten, only to show you the choreography of grain against ground. Headcloths are drawn a bit tighter. The bell animal lowers its chin and walks more deliberately, as if reading a quieter script. The caravan has a ritual for this. As caravans do, ropes are checked, the double turn around a horn. The half-hitch that remembers itself even when you don't. A handler wets a band of wool and lays it across a camel's nose. A small kindness learned from a grandfather whose name no one says aloud while the wind is working. You make yourself narrower to the gusts, not smaller, simply arranged to let the air pass through you the way water passes through reeds. It works. The wind approves and spends itself without drama, leaving the road with a fresh, clean look, as if someone had written the day in a neater hand. The lull after effort. Everything sounds further away now, which is how calm tells you its name. You notice particularities again: a crack in a saddle bow mended with brass, the faint dye bleeding from a bale of indigo. Blue as a deep story, the sound a date stone makes when it falls from a pocket and refuses to be missed. A drummer, only a boy, taps the side of a water skin with 2 fingers. No beat announces itself, the road is already beating enough for all of you. It's only a reminder in soft syllables that steps are cousins to one another. Related by patience, the master lifts his staff and points with the tenderness of a librarian choosing a page. There. A low shelf of rock, beyond it. A hollow, beyond the hollow. Shade. A wayside teke. The house of breath. The shade belongs to a little teke. A Sufi lodge with walls the color of unbaked bread and a doorway cut with modest confidence. A fig tree leans into its courtyard and offers exactly as much fruit as the afternoon requires. You enter the way one enters a poem whose meter you don't pretend to understand. The caretaker, a man with hands that have learned to speak by pouring tea, brings out cups small enough to encourage conversation and large enough to forgive silence. He asks for no payment besides the kind that cannot be counted. Remove your shoes because it is restful to do so. Leave the place with less dust on it than when you arrived. Let your breath be the softest thing in the room for a little while. On one wall a calligrapher has written a sentence that curls like sleep around the heart. Travel lightly, even your thoughts will be happier that way. You don't argue. Argument is a city habit that knows when it's on the wrong road. A dervish, smiling in the way of a man who has recently forgotten a clever answer, turns a single, slow circle, once only, then stops and bows to the idea of the day. The caravan bows to the same idea without moving at all, up into the shouldering hills. The land draws its shoulders up into hills, paths narrow. Bells change pitch against stone. Footing becomes a study in trust, yours in the bell animal. The bell animal's in the rock. The rock's in the old agreement it has with gravity, on a slope. A woman laughs softly when a kid goat decides your line is a parade arranged entirely for its amusement. Its owner whistles. A sound thinner than a reed yet full of command. The kid remembers its obligations and returns to the appropriate side of history. At a notch in the ridge, the world steps aside and shows you a valley laid out like a carpet, shaken and then smoothed with both hands. Terraces draw barley into neat ideas. A millpond turns the sky into a coin that buys motion for the wheel. The caravan pauses without stopping. The way the heart pauses between beats. High plateau. Long thoughts. Up here the air is an archivist, it keeps the day carefully. Not to keep you from it but to lend it back to you in order. Your breath goes in, and something more spacious comes out. As if the lungs had windows and someone had opened them all at once. A falconer crosses your path with a hooded bird as calm as a folded letter. He inclines his head. The hood tilts in imitation, a courtesy learned by proximity. You think about all the small obediences that make a long journey possible: leather to buckle, buckle to strap, strap to bale, bale to back, back to step, step to horizon. You stop thinking because the plateau prefers it. It would rather whisper to you about lichens and how they write their biographies in slow green alphabets on the faces of stones. A town like a pause. The road folds you gently into a hill town. Streets lean toward one another like sleepy friends. Balconies exchange shade. In the lower square a fountain speaks in the dialect that water learns wherever it lives long enough. The caravanserai here is older than its own stones. It has been repaired many times and never lost its original idea. The world goes by, let it rest. Inside, a bathhouse waits with steam that has no arguments to settle. If you choose the bath, you do so as if finishing a sentence that began at dawn. Attendants of all the soft authority of men whose lives are mostly steam and towels. They understand travelers, your dust, your silences, your tendency to make a list in your head and forget it in the same breath. Water moves across your shoulders like a good story crossing a border. No one asks for a passport, everyone recognizes it as their own. Afterward you are a simpler creature, warm, rinsed, and newly convinced that linen was invented by someone who loved mercy. The small market that fixes large things, evening gathers and lays out its wares. So does the market. A cobbler nails 2 new cleats into a sandal with a rhythm, careful not to disturb the moon. A tinsmith solders a seam. And the brief flare is like a nod from a distant lighthouse. You barter without the theatre of bargaining. Because the road has taught you that value is a soft conversation, not a duel. A coil of rope changes owners. Then stories. Then purpose. A little jar of quince paste comes into your life with the quiet confidence of something that knows it will be appreciated at precisely the right moment. Children drift at the edges, listening to accents arrange themselves into a traveling music. One of them imitates the caravan bell with 2 coins held together. The sound is almost right and wholly perfect. Letters arrive where they were always going. The scribe makes his way to a corner under a lamp and opens the packet of letters, which have travelled under wax, under rope, under the long faith of steps. Names are called softly. Faces answer. A woman receives a letter with both hands and the smile of someone who has been carrying an empty cup for a long time and has just been offered water. One man asks the scribe to read his letter aloud because the voice of another human being is the best ink. The scribe reads slowly, respecting the pauses the writer baked into the lines. When he is done, he folds the letter back into itself and returns it the way a well returns a bucket, filled and shining. A single reply is written tonight, 3 sentences and a blessing. It dries by the lamp. Learning patience from the flame. Night at the Ridge House. You sleep in a room with a window that faces a sky too large to be counted. The moon makes a small promise on the sill and keeps it. Below, in the courtyard, an old dog assigns itself the role of watchman and then forgets to be stern. It sighs in a circle and becomes a ring around its own dream. If you wake at any hour, the road is on the other side of the wall. Breathing the way roads breathe when they are waiting politely, you tell it you'll be along shortly. It tells you there is no hurry. A morning that belongs to everyone. Dawn is a republic. It votes for everyone equally. Shepherd, merchant, child, custodian, falcon, fig tree, fountain. The tally is unanimous. Begin. Bread is broken into the middle. Salt glows with the smooth light that salt has when it understands it is about to be useful. Someone laughs without a story and finds it is enough. Someone else tells a very short story. I slept, I woke, the world was still there. The bell animal is ready before anyone else. Which is the bell animal's way? Its muzzle is rubbed, and it leans into the rub with the certainty of a creature who knows where comfort lives. The coast in the mind, the road underfoot. You angle toward a rumor of coast, perhaps today, perhaps tomorrow, perhaps another day entirely. It doesn't matter. The sea is a kind of idea the land has when it wants to dream of moving without leaving. A woman walks beside you for a while, telling you about a garden that grows in a courtyard smaller than a sail. She grows mint in a jar shaped like an urn and lets it argue politely with the basil. She says the basil wins in summer and the mint in winter. And you nod because winning is a season lot. The road widens again, generous as an opened hand. The bells give a patient answer to a question the day hasn't asked yet. You feel sleep loosening its boat from the moorings behind your eyes. Let it go. It knows the channel. It knows the tide. A cairn by the salt wind. By late afternoon a cairn sits slow on the rise. Its walls brushed by a wind that has tasted salt and decided to be fond of it. Inside, shutters click like polite punctuation. The well is cooler here, and the bucket comes up with a new accent. A sailor is sleeping on a bench, a coil of rope for a pillow, and even his dreams have a tide schedule. He wakes, nods at the caravan as if it were a familiar star pattern, and goes back to promising the sea he will return to it soon. You don't need the sea. Not tonight. You need the square of floor that keeps the dust out of your bread. The cup that keeps the water where water belongs. The roof that tells the wind, you may sing but you may not rearrange the furniture. Lamps. Low voices. Late promises. The lamps are opened like small oranges. Their light peels itself in graceful strips across the courtyard. People sit with their knees near their chests the way contentment likes to sit. A boy lists the things he intends to become. A map maker. A rope twister. The man who puts the bell on the bell animal in the morning. The list is perfect because it has not decided to be real yet. An old woman lists the things she already is, a baker of thick bread, a rememberer of roots, a keeper of a key to a door no longer standing. The two lists agree to share the night. Last water. Last words. Water skins are topped with a ceremony so modest you might mistake it for habit. A crack in a stopper is wrapped with a twist of linen that believes in second chances. Someone checks a knot and then checks it again. Not out of fear but out of affection for knots. Words slow down as if the air had turned to honey and was asking to be carried with both hands. Good night is said a little before sleep arrives. So sleep can enter a room already prepared to welcome it. Sleep like a road with no milestones. And now. Again. The road agrees to keep going without you. It knows the way through the body's quiet, past the gate of the jaw relaxing. Along the arcade of the ribs moving like a calm wave. Into the courtyard of the heart where the echo is friendly and returns everything you say more gently than you said it. If you drift. Drift. If you are already far away. Stay as long as you like, we will be here. Wrapped in the mild grammar of bells and steps. In the company of roofs that remember how to forgive the wind. On the good road that keeps its promises with patience and, whenever you need it to, with silence, the hush between lamps and stars, sleep lies down in every corner. The Khan's beams remember ships and storms, though they have only ever shouldered sparrows. In the courtyard, a clay jar cools itself by slowly forgetting the heat it once knew. A camel dreams of a slope that never arrives and is comforted by the idea. Your blanket learns your shape and decides to keep it safe until morning. The wind tests each shutter with a scholar's care. Here a note. There a pause. Then a correction in a softer hand. Somewhere a spoon settles in a bowl and accepts its assignment, to be quiet for many hours. The world practices not needing anything from you and proves very good at it. Night watch and a lesson in patience. One watchman walks the parapet slowly enough to make time feel noticed. He counts not in numbers but in familiar things, the steps from the gate to the well. The breaths between a distant owl's calls. The moments it takes for a cloud to undecide itself in front of the moon. He pauses at the arch and tastes the air, salt, stone, and the thin mint of cooling mortar. A thought arrives and is folded carefully like a travel letter. Tomorrow is a road already writing itself. He sets the thought beside the lamp where it can keep warm. And continues. Dreams that know the route, in the guest cell. A merchant dreams of ledgers with pages made of water, sums float. Then arrange themselves kindly. A handler dreams of a foal that recognizes his voice in a field of voices. He wakes briefly smiling. Then returns to the field with gratitude. A student dreams of a map traced on the palm. Every line leads somewhere restful. Dreams are the caravan's second river. They carry the day's cargo downstream, polishing each memory until it becomes smooth enough to keep without edges. Dawn rehearses behind the curtains, before the first light. Dawn kneads the horizon like bread. A thread appears where dark cloth was seamless, it lengthens, then thickens, then gives itself a reason to be. The Khan hears it first as a change in the pigeons, their coo shifts key. As if agreeing to a more generous song. A kettle thinks about boiling, a gate thinks about opening, a pair of sandals think about following a road that has been thinking about them all night. First water. First words. The bucket drops. Then returns with the night still clinging to its sides. Hands and faces are washed, soft towels accept what dust remains with the patience of old friends. Peace. Someone says. And the word fits perfectly in the courtyard's square acoustics. Peace. Comes back. Exactly the same and a little warmer. Bread is torn open and lets steam tell its story. Olives wait in a shallow dish, glistening like decisions you no longer need to make. The first cup of coffee is poured as if into a small temple, quietly, and with respect for what it will fix that doesn't need fixing. Saddles and small certainties. Leather greets palm, palm nods. A strap finds its hole without searching. The bell animal offers its chest for the familiar scratch, then lowers its head for the familiar bell, which answers with a single round syllable. Ropes are checked as if they were promises, tight enough to hold, kind enough to forgive. The master looks along the line and sees what he always hopes to see, ordinary readiness. He lifts his staff a finger's width, and the caravan gathers itself the way a sentence gathers breath before a final clause. Back onto the long ledger. The road outside the khan is cool and particular. It presents its stones like a careful teacher, this one, then that one. Now a patch of dust where your steps may practice being quiet. A fisherman on the far track raises a hand without pausing his stride. The sea is near enough to be an idea and far enough to remain generous. Gulls sketch light punctuation marks in the pale sky, none of them need to be read aloud. A morning market that speaks softly, by a low bridge. A wayside market arranges itself with unambitious confidence. Figs. Their seams barely closed. Cheese that remembers the pasture. A sliver of honeycomb. A geometry that never brags. You trade a length of twine for a cup of cool buttermilk. Both parties feel lucky. The scribe purchases a new reed and tests it on a scrap. A single line that says nothing except I'm ready. That is enough. Ready is the best word at this hour. Salt road. Bright air. Salt pans glitter like folded mirrors. Men rake the shallow sheets carefully, drawing lines the sun approves of. Wind tastes of harvest and distance. The caravan keeps to the edge where the path is firm. Every step is a polite question to the ground. Every answer affirmative. A girl carrying a basket of lemons offers one to the bell animal, who considers and declines with grace. She accepts the decision as if it were wisdom, which in a way it is. A coastal khan with a view that doesn't hurry. Toward noon, you reach a khan built to watch light change from its terrace. The sea rehearses one gesture for hours. Come here. Go there. Return. Shade lies down in long, agreeable shapes. Inside, a storeroom smells of hemp, resin, and the good stubbornness of rope. The custodian counts coils, then counts his blessings with the same neat pleasure. He lends a needle big enough to persuade canvas, and a tear in a cover becomes a memory of a tear and then only canvas again. Rest in the deep noon. The courtyard nap is democratic, even opinions fall asleep. A sparrow claims jurisdiction over a windowsill and enforces the law of stillness. Somewhere a pot clicks as it decides simmer is better than boil. If you remain awake, you practice the quiet craft of looking at nothing until nothing looks kindly back. It does. It always does. Given time. Lessons from a rope maker. In the shade of the gate, a rope maker shows a boy how fibers become intention. Twist with the sun, he says. So the rope remembers warmth. Spit on your fingers only to quiet the flyaways, not to shortcut the work. Finish with a tuck that can be unmade by a friend and not by an accident. The boy nods as if receiving an oath. The rope maker nods as if giving one. Between the two nods lies a road's worth of understanding. Setting out in the gentler light, when the day leans west, the caravan stands and likewise leans, in the direction hope usually faces. Steps lengthen without rushing. The bell's note collects itself, round as a pomegranate, then rolls ahead of you as an offering to the miles. You pass a field where linen stretches on frames. Pale flags of everyday victory. Women laugh in low tones that match the winds, and the wind gladly lends them its key. A bend of tamarisk and a book of shade. At a bend, tamarisk trees write shade in generous paragraphs. Water sits in a stone basin convincing itself to be cooler. You drink slowly enough to hear your thirst say thank you. A traveler from the opposite direction points with two fingers, beyond the next rise. A khan whose oven is famous for bread as wide as shields and thinner than patience. Reputations like this matter. The road is made of them as much as of dust. the oven that keeps its promises. The khan arrives exactly where promised and exactly itself, a gate, a courtyard, a well, an oven with a door like a smile. Bread slides in like a good idea and emerges like a better one. You tear it, and steam carries small stories to your face. Wheat, ash, the practiced hands that taught heat to be useful. Lentils, cumin, a curl of onion, a drift of yogurt cooled under a damp cloth. Plates are a democracy of circles. Supper is served at the speed of forgiveness. Letters entrusted to distance. The scribe brings out the packet again. The lamp approves with a small nod of flame. A reply is sealed with a fingernail's pressure and a breath to cool the wax. 2 signatures, 1 seen, 1 felt. Names of towns are spoken like blessings. Konya, Aleppo, Bursa, Damascus, Azurum, each a roofed sentence. The road is always finishing. An old courier places the letters in a satchel that has already learned the shapes of many hopes. He pats it once as if it were a foal. It is. Every message is. Until it stands somewhere and is recognized. Evening devotions. Shared and solitary. Mats align toward a certainty. Words move like oars, level, steady, bringing the heart to its own shore. Some pray from memory, some from need, some from custom so familiar it has ripened into joy. A woman folds an extra blanket at the threshold of a stranger's cell. No one sees her, which is how some kindness prefers it. Repairs that close the day. A stitch bites canvas and lets go. A buckle's tongue learns a new hole and approves the lesson. A splinter is lifted from a thumb with a needle cleaned in the lamp's blue breath. Tools are wiped with a rag that smells of oil and long afternoons. Tomorrow is invited to arrive with less to fix. It accepts the quiet arithmetic of sleep. Beds are simple sums, mat plus blanket plus the days subtracting. You subtract dust, subtract worry, subtract the road's list of small negotiations. What remains is the kind of number you can rest inside. Outside, the bell animal settles and lets the bell rest against stone. One soft kiss, and then no more. Stars take their places with professional ease. Night's soft bookkeeping. The night writes down what happened and rounds the numbers in your favor. A breath missed here is returned there with interest. Anxiety charged in the morning is quietly refunded at the gate. If you wake, it is only to notice how well the door fits its frame, how faithfully the rafters remember their task, how the courtyard holds the sky without dropping any of it. A traveler's lullaby. Listen, the sea far off is combing its hair. The wind turns a page and finds the same good sentence again. A kettle clicks, not to begin boiling, but to remind itself that beginning is easy when the time comes. The road hums a tune you learned before you had words for tunes. It says, every step is a promise, every promise is small and keeps itself. The kindest sort of morning, at last. Blue gathers where black had been. Someone coughs politely. Someone laughs at a dream and can't remember it anymore. Feet find sandals. Hands find straps. Faces find water and improve by it. Coffee returns with its old argument that is never unkind. Bread wakes up from being bread and becomes breakfast. The bell animal stands without being asked. Dignity can be eager. 2. Setting out when everything agrees. The custodian opens the gate like a book he has read many times and still loves. Blessings are exchanged at a volume that suits both stone and dawn. The caravan lengthens, breath by breath. Into a sentence the day will finish gently. On the road, dew quits its job and joins the air. Birds let the morning borrow their signatures. Your steps sign beside them. Tidy and confident. Fields that remember songs. Terraces hold barley the way a lullaby holds a child, securely, and with room to sway. Women beat rugs with wands of willow. Dust rises, considers rebellion, then surrenders with dignity. A boy runs along a wall and keeps his balance by trusting he will. If you listen, the land offers a melody older than your errand and exactly suited to accompany it. You hum without knowing, and the road hums back. The bridge that forgets to end. At a shallow river, a stone bridge continues longer than it needs to. Content to be generous, you cross in a line that respects the custom, lightest first. Bell animal in the middle. The master where a glance can divide calmly into ahead and behind. Water tells its brief news, cool, smooth, convinced of downstream. Coins flash at the bottom where children once proved their courage. The river agrees to keep their secrets. A last hill and a wide plain. The last hill wears shrubs like thoughtful eyebrows. Beyond it spreads a plain that has learned the art of horizon, how to be straight without being stern. The road loosens into three paths briefly, then returns to one. Like opinions that have decided to agree for the sake of peace, the caravan moves as if it had been waiting its whole life to be this unhurried. If sleep catches you now, let it. The bell will hold the rhythm, the road will keep the count, and when you open your eyes, the world will still be proceeding gently in the right direction. With space for your breath and kindness for your pace. A plain with good manners. The plain practices hospitality by being easy to cross. It lays itself out in long, well-behaved lines. And the wind chooses to be a companion rather than a critic. Footfalls make a parchment sound, bells write on it in round, patient letters. A shepherd on the far margin lifts his staff like a lighthouse seen at noon, unnecessary and still reassuring. His flock drifts as if each sheep had been given a gentle suggestion and liked it. The caravan arranges itself into a looser grace. The scout far enough to taste the air first. The master where the line can find him with a glance. The bell animal in mid-sentence, and at the back. The quiet certainty that nothing important has been forgotten. A sky that keeps promises. Clouds gather in polite commas, pauses. Not warnings. Their shade arrives in fragments. Soft islands that visit faces and move on. Somewhere a lark decides the day requires an aria and supplies one. Carefully measured to the horizon, a handler points with his chin, distant poplars marking a wadi. Their leaves showing the road where to pour its attention next. The poplars approve and applaud with a sound like soft rain made of coins. At the wadi's bed, the last of last week's water lies thinking about becoming earth again. Camels step wide, knowing old mud when they see it, and pass without asking it to remember weight. The accountant of distances, the master moves two brass counters on their string and nods, miles balanced against wells. Afternoon against the breadth of shade ahead. He is not a tyrant over numbers, he is their gardener. Pruning, trusting, letting the season help. The scribe makes a note. Read nib whispering on a sliver of paper. Sultan, 2 hours if the wind is friendly. 3 if it turns scholar and overthinks the day. A small joke walks the line, unannounced, and everyone greets it without needing to stop their feet. The itinerant orchard. You meet a peddler with 2 baskets slung from a yoke, apricots the color of remembered sunsets and cucumbers practicing being rain. Coins change hands. Blessings change hands. A story changes hands and grows a little truer in the exchange. Someone proposes salt with apricot, someone else raises an eyebrow, both are correct. The bell animal receives the privilege of the first cucumber end and considers itself thanked. A wind that learned courtesy. When the wind freshens it does so as if knocking once and waiting. Headcloths bow in answer. The road, lightly combed, looks pleased with itself. A boy walks backward a few steps to admire the caravan as a whole, how it moves without announcing its cleverness. He turns, cheeks warmed by the sun and a private pride he has not decided whether to keep. Sultan on the shoulder of a dune. The Khan rises like an honest idea, square, shaded, convinced of water. Its gate keeps the shape of welcome ready all day and is rarely disappointed. Inside, a trough remembers countless muzzles. Rings fixed in stone offer their dependable circles. A shade awning pretends to be a cloud and succeeds. The custodian smiles with the exactness of a man who likes ledgers because they end every day by agreeing with him. He writes your count with a stylus into wax that forgives mistakes immediately. Midday smallness. Deliberate and kind. Loads come off like final clauses from a sentence that has proven its point. Canvas is folded into opinions that will be happily changed by evening. Dust decides it has done enough and sits. Lunch is the democracy of circles again. Bread, yogurt, olives, lentils, then apricots that still remember leaves. The scribe uses the clean edge of a date stone to neaten his fingernail and looks unjustifiably proud of the innovation. No one corrects him. Innovations need encouragement while they are small, a lesson in hooves and patience, in the shade. A handler lifts a forepad, wipes the soft place where the road sometimes hides a pebble, and praises the camel for letting the world be improved. Oil wakes leather, a buckle learns a new hole to love, two boys practice knots, clove hitch, constrictor, bowline. Each one a sentence with a happy ending. They untie them again for the joy of seeing a problem change its mind. Steam as an argument for mercy. There is a bathroom carved from the Khan's thick wall. A half-moon of tile and old steam. A jug of warm water argues gently for a slower pace. You agree. Dust becomes a memory. Then a lesson. Then merely something the floor now understands more intimately. A traveler sighs the sigh of a loaf coming out of an oven and recognizing the air. Clean cloth speaks fluent gratitude. The road resumes like a sentence saved in drafts. The awning's shade steps aside. The caravan stands, taller by the amount of rest it has swallowed. Bells try one note, then continue with it. Pleased to have found a key that fits the afternoon, the master points the staff toward a place where the horizon makes a considerate bend. And the line follows as if the world had put an arrow there for you personally. A brief quarrel of clouds. Quickly forgiven. Clouds assemble with intentions they forget to declare. A scatter of rain passes through the air like fine handwriting. Faces open to it and close again. Refreshed as if the day had whispered a compliment and walked on. The dust, momentarily heavier, behaves, leather darkens honorably. Then returns to its usual shade. Pilgrims and provisions. A small party of pilgrims joins for a stretch. Quiet people with sandals that have already learned discipline. They carry dates, flatbread, and a certainty that points the same direction as your own. Together, silence grows companionable and tall. One pilgrim shares a proverb: if you want the road to be shorter, walk it with gratitude. It works at once. Miles decide to be hospitable. The grammar of dusk. Dusk declines its verbs: to cool, to hush, to arrive. Camels walk more softly, humans do. 2. Someone lights a lamp in a watchtower far off. A single syllable of fire that pronounces here. Bats practice punctuation over the courtyard you have not yet entered but already expect. Commas, commas, commas. Never a period before the right time. Caravanserai of the Cedar Beam. The place is named for an old cedar that gave one long beam. And the beam still holds its calm over the main room. You enter through a gate that recognizes your walk and decides you belong. The well is deep enough to remember winter. The oven has decided to be generous tonight and is. A girl with flour on her forearms presses flatbread with fingertips that leave constellations you could navigate by. Supper that solves what wasn't a problem. Chickpeas surrender to cumin. Rice decides upon saffron and is not sorry. A salad of cucumber and mint proves the existence of mercy. Silence sits at the table like a respected elder. Now and then someone asks it a question. It answers with the sound of bread tearing, which is always correct. Letters cross a threshold. The courier you saw 2 towns ago appears from the gate the way good timing does, quietly. Inevitably, satchels are opened. Paper finds its predestined hands. A man holds a letter to his chest first, because the heart reads faster than the eyes. The scribe writes 3 replies for those who can't write but can dictate gratitude better than any ink. Wax softens, takes seals, and remembers them without complaint. Evening study, stars as librarians. On the roof, the old traveler points with a thumb. A method that teaches humility to the constellations. That curve is the great cart, that line anticipates dawn, that shy cluster is for travelers who prefer company even in their maps. A boy realizes the sky is a kind of index. You don't need to read every page to find yourself. He sleeps with that knowledge and saves the rest for later. Devotions like oars. Prayer moves the room in level strokes. Breath arranges itself politely. Words know where they are going and arrive there. Unflustered. Afterward. Beads click once. Then rest. Someone folds a mat so neatly that tomorrow has no choice but to be cooperative. Repairs. Inventories. Benedictions. A ledger closes with the crisp satisfaction of a door that fits its frame. The master moves a final counter and smiles the invisible smile again. A strap is burnished with tallow. A splinter is persuaded out of a finger with tweezers that remember being a hairpin. Blessings drift the room like moths that never singe themselves. Sleep gathers its tools, dark. Quiet. A draught the temperature of forgiveness. The steady watchman and the cedars hum. The watchman circles the courtyard and listens to the cedar beam hum a note only old wood knows. He thinks of his daughter learning to bake the first bread that will be more proud than nervous. He approves of futures conducted at sensible speeds. The night arranges its chairs, sits with its knees together, and tells the stars to go on without making a fuss. They know how. Sleep that files the day properly. Dreams stack themselves as tidy as folded saddlebags. Nothing is lost, nothing insists on being urgent. When a worry tries the door answers, closed for inventory, kindly return tomorrow lighter. The earliest pulse of light, a coolness walks the corridor knocking softly at each lintel. Someone answers with a yawn polite enough to be a beau. The courtyard remembers birds and produces them in the right order. Coffee rehearses its argument and wins. Water remembers faces and improves them. The bell animal presents its chest and is scratched in the traditional places. Setting out with pockets full of quiet, the gate opens like a soft thought. Farewells are exchanged at a volume suitable for masonry. Sand approves your footfalls. The road tilts its chin toward the east. A fox writes its signature beside yours and departs, leaving the scene better balanced. The market at the mouth of a valley. Stalls wake as if they had been thinking all night and now remember the answer. Figs. Thread. Tinware. Laughter. A tinsmith taps a lip true. A weaver counts by touch alone. You buy a needle not because yours is lost but because it is good to own two solutions to one problem. A child tries the bell with two shells. The pitch is loyal enough to be forgiven. Climbing to the pass with unambitious steps. The path becomes a string tied to a ridge and pulls you upward kindly. Stone underfoot offers the polite firmness of a handshake. Breaths lengthen, conversation shortens to looks that mean still good. At a turn, the world shows you two valleys at once and asks no decision. You accept both and keep moving. The pass and its modest triumph. At the top, someone says nothing, which is the right blessing. Wind arrives like an old friend who doesn't require a story to be told twice. You share a date that tastes of shade and time. On the far side, descent begins with shoulders relaxing. Yours. The hills. Even the skies. A terrace of pomegranates. An orchard steps down the slope like a careful staircase. Pomegranates test their color in public. Leaves applaud without rustling too loudly. A grower hands you one and demonstrates the polite method, open with the pressure of the thumbs. Invite the rubies to be themselves. Eat slowly enough to be grateful. Seeds tick like little clocks that refuse to hurry you. The river that agrees with everything. At the bottom, water remembers how to be confident. It carries small boats and large intentions without complaint. You cross at the ford the way travelers have practiced for so long the river has learned to enjoy it. Sandal leather greets water, water answers in its old generous language. On the far bank, dust shakes your hand and welcomes you back. Cairn of two figs. Two trees lean over a gate as if discussing the virtues of hospitality and finding none lacking. Inside, the yard smells of wood smoke and bread that has decided to be excellent. You enter the quiet the way a letter enters an envelope made exactly for it. All day's edges round off without asking permission. Permission is already granted. Supper like a solved equation. Stew. Bread. Olives. Yogurt. A slice of melon that pretends to be a moon and succeeds. No flavor shouts. Each one nods to the others and sits down. Bellies understand negotiations ending well. Someone retells the smallest story of the day. Apricots. A pass. The polite rain, and the room agrees that this is what days should be for. Lamps and the arithmetic of contentment. Lamps put coins of light on the floor and count them leisurely. Voices decline verbs again. To rest. To remember. To be. A cat conducts slow inspections and writes approvals with its tail. Letters are placed under a folded scarf against tomorrow. A mat is shaken, the air says thank you. Night owns the roof. The roof learns starlight by heart and recites it without moving its lips. The cedar beam hums a note that forgives everything small, outside. A camel claims a patch of cool stone and dreams of a hill made entirely of gentle slopes. If you drift now, the road will walk for you a while. It knows your size, your pace, and the way you like your horizons folded. The courtyard's last thoughts. A jug sweats into contentment. A broom leans like a pilgrim who has reached the right threshold. The watchman counts swallows, then stars, then his blessings. Finding no shortage, sleep arrives with its quiet toolbox and fixes what was never broken, only tired. The caravan, a sentence long and true, pauses at its comma and dreams of the next clause. Dawn again. Because dawn is generous. Blue rinses black. The well teaches buckets the oldest lesson. Up. Bread puffs and smiles. Coffee explains itself without being asked. Hands find straps, straps find their work. The bell animal offers its chest. A single note rounds itself and rolls ahead, promising a day conducted at the speed of kindness. Back to the wide road, which remembers you. The gate says go well in the dialect of hinges. The figs nod. The line lengthens into the morning the way a good thought lengthens into a plan. If you sleep now, the bells will keep count. If you wake later, you will find the horizon just where you left it, polite, patient, and pleased to continue the journey beside your breath. A lane that behaves like a friend. The path threads between low stone fences stitched with time and little yellow flowers that haven't learned to hurry. A farmer waves from a terrace and points his chin toward a shortcut your feet were already considering. The caravan accepts the suggestion without pride. Advice is just hospitality in a smaller cup. A pair of swallows cross low, sewing the air with quick stitches. Bells answer in round syllables. Dust lifts politely, then settles again as if smoothing the covers on a bed someone has just left warm. The school beneath the mulberry, under a mulberry tree. A teacher draws letters in dirt smooth as a tablet. Children repeat the curves with their fingers. Learning the alphabet of patience. You pause only long enough to let your shadow join the class and learn one letter more than it knew. The teacher bows slightly, you bow back without breaking the road's thought. The mulberry drops one fruit with ceremony. A child rescues it, splits it with a friend, and both agree generosity tastes like summer. A field that knows the bell's name. Barley heads incline together as if hearing a familiar guest at the gate. Wind walks across them gentler than news, firmer than rumor. Camels place their feet on last year's path where hooves and seasons negotiated a durable civility. A handler hums a shepherd's tune he learned from someone who learned it from someone the road still remembers by voice alone. The tune has 3 notes and a long, contented exhale. It suits the morning. The tinsmith's corner. At a crossroads stands a roof of woven reeds and 4 patient poles. Beneath it, a tinsmith with hands bright as arguments settled well. He smooths a dent from a water flask with the back of a spoon, calling the metal back to its better posture. You trade a handful of almonds for 3 new rivets and a story about a storm that once applauded this very roof. The roof bows slightly at the memory as if to receive its encore. Everyone smiles in that small way families smile at jokes that have outlived their birthdays. Stones that practice remembering. The road turns to cobbles laid by ancestors who liked order. Their edges have agreed to be round enough for comfort. The bell animal shortens its step half a beat and the whole line adjusts. The way sentences make room for a comma that improves their breathing. A lizard, scholarly in its stillness, allows your shadow to pass the foot of its rock. It blinks once, grading your form as acceptable for this course. A cup from a monastery cistern, beyond an olive grove. White walls hold a small monastery that speaks in the grammar of lime and cool. A brother in a brown robe draws water from a cistern and tips a cup toward travelers with no questions attached. The cup is earthen, wide-lipped, and at peace with its vocation. You drink the way letters drink ink, thoroughly, without wasting. The brother offers a fig and a few words about weather that sound like blessings that have chosen simpler clothes. Noon learning to be kind. Heat proposes itself in measured clauses. Head cloths answer yes, pace answers yes, shade answers yes, the road. Pleased that everyone agrees. Becomes easy to translate again, at a bend. A tamarind tree writes a cool paragraph over the ground. You sit inside the sentence. Lunch is folded bread. A line of salt. Cucumber that thinks it is rain. And dates that think they are time. Knots that know their manners. Rest stretches itself thin and content. Two young handlers practice bowlines with their eyes closed. Learning to trust their fingers' quiet speech. The master shows them the final tuck that makes a knot defer to purpose without forgetting it can be persuaded to let go. They laugh softly when a loop turns out handsomer than it needs to be. Beauty is just usefulness that remembered to enjoy itself. The far drum of trade, from somewhere ahead. The faint percussive murmur of a larger town, cartwheels. Mallets. Paddles beating cloth at the river. The sound arrives braided with the afternoon's lighter wind. A rope tossed from future to present so you can pull yourself along it without hurry. A boy asks whether the town makes better bread than yesterday's. Someone says all good bread belongs to the same family. The boy decides this is wisdom he can keep without carrying. A dye yard the color of decision. The town's edge glows indigo where vats tremble like quiet thunder. Workers lift wet fabric with poles. And air learns new blues by heart. A woman wrings a length of cloth. A river of midnight runs briefly from her wrists and returns to day. You watch 1 minute longer than you planned. Even the bell animal pauses as if taking a note to remember later when the sky requests accompaniment. Khan of 3 arches. The caravanserai offers 3 arches in a row. Like polite invitations to the same room, you choose the middle because middles are where balance likes to sit, inside. The well keeps its voice low and dependable. The oven issues persuasive arguments and wins them all. Stalls around the courtyard sell what roads need: rope, oil, patience. Patience is free but still displayed with pride. Baths, steam, and the arithmetic of ease. In the hammam, steam softens every sharp memory and returns it improved. A bowl passes from hand to hand. Brass singing quietly with each pour. You wash as if erasing a slate carefully, leaving the parts that turned out kind. A masseur translates muscle into simpler language. Your shoulders, newly fluent, agree to carry only what the day truly contains. Supper in circles and crescents. Bowls arrive in circles, bread in crescents, olives in constellations. A child arranges and names. A stew of lamb and apricot makes the case that sweet and savory are neighboring doors on the same street. Everyone moves slower in agreement. The scribe copies 2 lines for a merchant who likes to send courtesy ahead of his cargo. The lines say, "We are near. We are well." Sometimes literature is happiest at that length. The customary small debate about stars. On the roof. The old traveler claims one cluster resembles a camel train. A boy insists it is clearly a key. Both are right. The sky is generous with metaphors. They conclude amicably that some keys open caravans and some caravans open keys. A breeze tries on different temperatures like shawls and settles on one that suits everyone's patience. Devotions like well water. Prayer descends the throat as easily as water. Rises as evenly as breath. Words sit where they are placed and glow with borrowed starlight, when finished. Silence covers them the way dust covers footsteps overnight, gently, approvingly. The ledger closes with a smile. Counters slide, the master nods at a day that behaved responsibly. He writes a small margin note, tomorrow. A river ford, choose the left braid, not the right. The reed ben agrees with a sound like distant rain. Ropes are coiled into circles that remember how to unwind without sulking. The bell rests against stone and decides to be a moon for 1 minute before sleep. Sleep that smooths the map. Dreams turn corners no map needs to list. The road takes your weight and stores it in a ledger that balances mercy against miles and finds both profitable. If you stir, it is only to improve your comfort by the thickness of a folded corner of blanket. A watchman and the arithmetic of quiet. The watchman counts by fours, breaths, stars, heartbeats, door hinges that creak only where it sounds like memory. He steps slightly past sleeping animals who have promised to keep the earth from rolling away. It keeps its promise, he keeps his. Dawn negotiates the price of shadows. Light considers the cost and pays it in pale coins along the parapet. Shadows accept a smaller wage and are content. Birds sign the receipt with their usual efficiency. Coffee arrives with a memory of cardamom. Water arrives with a memory of stone. Faces become the people you recognize again, setting out with pockets of kindness. Straps find their rightful holes. The bell animal leans into its scratch with an expression that earns it two more. You step under the arch the way a sentence crosses a line break, continuing. Untroubled, a child waves from a window with the seriousness of an ambassador. You return the wave with equal ceremony. Treaties are strengthened. The long border of reeds. A river runs beside you. Rehearsing the ancient speech of downstream. Reeds applaud in narrow hands. Fishermen lift nets that glisten like paragraphs pulled from water's library. At a shallow bend, you cross on stones that have learned where to stand. Sandals agree with water. Then with earth again. Democratic in their loyalties. Orchard hospitality. A grove offers shade at the price of sitting still a little while. You pay gladly. Apples are passed. Someone proves the theorem that salt improves everything. Even conversations. The grove keeps your laughter in a pocket and will give it back to travelers next year who haven't met you yet. Trees understand inheritance. The windmill's patient arithmetic. On a low knoll. A windmill turns sums into flour. Its sails move with the self-respect of tools that have nothing to prove. A miller dusted white as a snowfall nods to the bell animal and the bell animal nods back. Both professionals acknowledging each other's union. You trade a small sack of dates for a small sack of flour, each will become bread with the other's help. Economies enjoy such symmetries, a straight road and generous thoughts. The track unspools so true it could teach rulers their job, with nothing to solve. Minds wander to good places, a courtyard where someone is waiting with tea, a balcony where laundry will smell of sun, a room that belongs to rest and knows it. The line breathes together like a choir that has rehearsed often and kindly. Khan of the painted gate. The gate is patterned with simple flowers that kept their colors by refusing to brag. Inside, the well has a rope smoother than speech. You drink. And the courtyard drinks your relief and becomes cooler by the width of a smile. A baker slides rounds onto hot stone. The room fills with the argument bread always wins. Supper that thanks the day. Olives. Onions quick kissed by fire. Lentils with lemon. Bread so soft it forgets to be humble and then remembers. A boy presents a jar of tahini like a treasure. It is. The master declares the miles satisfied and the company admirable. In the ceremonial language of two raised eyebrows, letters that travel in sleep, by lamp. The scribe writes for a woman who has words but wants help with their walking. He writes them the way a ferryman handles passengers, steady. Dry feet at both shores, wax softens. Accepts a signet. And dreams of cities it will enter without hurrying. Quiet devotions and a roof that understands. Prayers rise like steam from a warm bowl, visible for a moment. Then part of the room's comfort. Above, beams accept the night with professional grace. A moth examines the lamp and chooses wisely to adore it from a distance. Sleep that edits kindly. The day is revised, redundancies trimmed, kind details left intact. Harshness turned down to a footnote with excellent manners. Dreams stack like tidy bowls. If one tips, another steadies it without waking you. The earliest herons of light. A thin gold thread sews the eastern hem. Roosters remember their obligations and fulfill them with measured pride. Coffee answers with its familiar counter-argument, which wins by making friends. The bell's first word. Hands greet leather, leather greets storm. The bell speaks once. A round syllable that rolls ahead and returns with a promise. The road will be kind at the speed you choose. You choose slow. The road nods. Relieved, it prefers slow when it can get it. An afternoon you can fold twice. Miles are clean and cooperative. A breeze orders the heat into smaller portions. You realize the whole day will fit in a pocket of memory with room left for a lemon and a small pencil. At a fork, the master points left with the staff and the line follows like ink after a pen that knows its page. Somewhere ahead, another courtyard and another well are already considering how best to welcome you. They will succeed. They always do, and if you drift now, the bells will keep your place in the sentence until you open your eyes and read on.